how do we manage life in a technological society? First, we got to understand the problem and what's at stake. Then we have to desacralize the lure of modern tech. These things have transcendent power. They're almost magical. Okay, we attribute a lot of value to that. We got to desacralize that. We got to take the sacred out of that. Okay, and make it a common object again that we can use, yes, but that cannot use us. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. I do. I also appreciate the sentiment. Bad company corrupts good morals. That's good. That's good, and that's going to fit right in with what I'm sharing with you guys today. Well, you guys are tech lovers. You're tech enthusiasts. Some of you are tech workers. Definitely tech users. And maybe tech addicts, and I am counting myself in that list. You know, I'm not somebody who, you know, advocates running to the woods and escaping all of this. You know, I have an iPhone sitting in my pocket right now, which I may pull out and use as a visual aid, you know, at times. But I'm right there with you, and so I want to make that clear, you know, at the outset. This is not something I'm telling you to do or not do. I don't want to shame you into anything. This is just something that I've been studying for 5 or 6 years or more, and I feel like it's time to share some of the discoveries I've made with others so that together we can walk this journey with technology and, as my presentation suggests, you know, become a tech boss. So with that in mind, we'll get started. But I do not see my presentation on the screen now, so I'm wondering if there's an issue. Give us 1 second here. Did it time out on us? Okay. Well, that wouldn't be so good, would it?
That over-talkative guy that introduced you.
All right. Well, I do a podcast called Simply Scottish, you know, as great as Scotland can be with its history and its culture and some famous Scots who have come to America and done some cool stuff, not everybody's into Scotland, I've found, you know, and I don't take it personally. But what everybody is into is technology. There's not one person on the face of the planet who doesn't have some kind of interaction with tech and has insight and has thoughts. So as I've been studying this, I get excited about that because everybody can relate, you know. So, and I did spend some time in Texas, so I consider this as a home state, if you will. I came all the way from Bonnie, Scotland when I was 11 years old and grew up in the Rio Grande Valley, so way down south in Harlingen. So that was a lot of fun, and then we came to the Seattle area. Anyway, I like to start off with this quote, and I'll tell you more about this fella later. His name is Jacques Ellul, and you're going to want to learn more about him and read his work. He said, mid-century, the denizen of the technological state of the future will have everything his heart ever desired, except, of course, his freedom. And that was 1954 in a book called The Technological Society. Great read. I recommend it. And after we talk today about his phenomenon of technique, go get a copy of it and read it for yourself and see how this has developed. So as you can imagine, our theme today is going to be freedom. And this is something we keep coming back to. You know, we want our freedom. We want to live in freedom. And in some ways, we can see our freedom being taken from us or us allowing it to slip away in ways we might not even realize. So it's good to put this front and center and decide what we're going to do to maintain our liberty. So let's talk about freedom for a second. You know, the Bible calls us to live as free people, and it is for freedom that Christ died for us, okay? So we should stand firm and guard against that slavery that can come without us even knowing it's coming. Thomas Merton, the famous Catholic hermit, he put it really good when he described freedom as the ability to do the will of God. And, you know, as Christians, and I'm not assuming that everybody is a Christian, but once you get to that point where you acknowledge that God exists and that Christ died and he died for you, then you're living as a Christian, and true freedom is to do with doing his will in your life, okay? So that is what I'm using as a guiding definition of freedom. Jacques Ellul also said, when we become conscious of that which determines our life, we attain the highest degree of freedom. So he knew there was a correlation between what is guiding us and the amount of freedom we're going to have. And again, I'll introduce Jacques a little more later. But first, just a quick outline of what we're going to be looking at today. The first thing I do is give you a new understanding of the word technology. We're gonna kind of look at that and just gain a better understanding of what it is and how it relates to us. Then we're going to shift gears and start to learn how to be a tech boss. That's what I call just being in charge of your technology enough to where you can do the will of God without distraction, without hindrance, without being deluded or being taken off the trail, if you will. And all that points to living the human adventure. That is really the ultimate goal of mine, and maybe a lot of people who are connected to this, is just how do we be human? You know, we are made and designed a certain way to live. And when we come out of that, or when we're not doing that, we don't feel alive. And so addressing that is really where I'm going with all this. One of my guiding verses that I've come across is Ephesians 2:10. For it's by grace you've been saved, you know it, through faith, and it's not of yourselves, it's the gift of God. We are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works. And those good works, he didn't just think on a whim, he actually prepared them in advance for us to do. So this has been on the agenda, excuse me, since time immemorial. And we can come into it and we can start living out those good works that he pre-planned for us a long time ago. So keep that verse in mind as we talk about what we're doing here. So we've all heard of FOMO, okay? And for those who haven't or are not familiar, FOMO is the fear of missing out. That's what it stands for. Missing out on what? The latest iteration of our favorite devices, the latest iOS operating system to come out, updates, upgrades, what we're missing on social media as our family and friends and associates share. Okay, it's this fear that we can all feel sometimes. Well, gee, I better get on and share something, just to keep up with the Joneses and see what everybody else is up to. But what I want to do really is turn FOMO upside down. And I want us to develop a fear, rather, of missing out on those good works that God has pre-planned for us. That's what I want FOMO to become for myself and anybody I can help. It's not fear of missing out on all of those things. It's actually what we can miss out, what we can bring to the table as humans in his image, okay? It's one of the saddest things I can think of is a person who doesn't live up to their potential and doesn't do the good works that God earmarked for them. It's one of the saddest things I can think of. So that's what we want to do, is turn FOMO upside down. So the three-step process is what I've laid out. It's renewing our understanding of technology, resetting, hitting that button, the reset button, resetting our boundaries to technology, and then releasing our God-given potential. My first discovery that I've made in these six years or so of study is just the true meaning of technology. Not a lot of people take time to just kind of think it through, What is the meaning of all this stuff? Where does this word even come from? Well, I dug into it, and I found that it is actually all about us, just not in the passive, selfish, unthinking way that it has become in some ways, okay? And I got really excited as I learned this, It's all about us. So the basic definition of technology is the practical application of knowledge in a particular area. Okay, that's straightforward. A manner of accomplishing a task, especially using technical processes, methods, or knowledge. Okay? The sum of the ways in which social groups provide themselves with the material objects of their civilization. And that got me thinking. What are those material objects and where do they come from? So I dug a little deeper and I found out that the prefix techno comes from the Greek techne, which is art, skill, craft in work, or a system of making or doing. Okay? So far, so good. And then I get right to the deep root, which is T-E-K-S. And please remember that. Write it down somewhere. T-E-K-S. Okay? And what that literally means is to weave or fabricate. And you think about that for a second, and it's like, yeah, this is what I build, okay, or what somebody else makes. Literally, what is woven together is technology. And the root tex allows us to form words like axe, hatchet, carve, join, build. You see them all up there. Tectonic even, text, tiller, and toil. Examples of technology, obviously they all abound. We're having that issue again. Gosh, that's annoying. Do we have an IT person in the house still? Wow. Okay, well, I might be doing this every now and then. Just raise your hand when that happens, and I'll try to replug it in. Okay, so examples of technology, right? The literal weaving of a basket, okay? The building of a home. Think of all the technologies that have to come together to do that. Sculpture, and other forms of art. Obviously, we're using our tools, and that's technology. Technology is not just a screen, although that's what we've gotten used to these days. Okay, it can be, but it's not always. Tons of technology in this picture, right? The board in the back keeping score, the basketball, okay? And of course, the basketball itself and the people playing it, right? All examples of technology. So the heart of technology is the human art and skill that is used to make or build objects useful for living. Okay, that's what it is. Technology is what we do with our hands and our minds, as well as how we use the tools that other people have made. Now, that's important to remember. It's not just what we make, it's how we use tools that other people have made. Other people like Steve Jobs or, Mark Zuckerberg, okay, or all these other folks. My second discovery that I made along the way about technology is that God is the original technician. We are God's technology. And this is a useful insight to have, I think of Psalm 139. My pastor went over that a few Mother's Days ago and read it, and it just sort of clicked in a different way as I was studying technology. And we all know it, okay? We're created, you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. Okay, it's a very popular verse. But the word knit caught my attention, because it's like weaving, So I took a closer look at that. You see this language of invention throughout this passage in Psalm 139. And the word knit comes from the Hebrew word sakach, which means to hedge or fence about or shut in, but it also means to weave. So you have the same understanding of the root for technology in the word for how God knitted us together in our mother's womb in that dark place. So I thought that was pretty awesome, to make that connection. So I think it's fair to say that we are God's technology. Charles Spurgeon put it this way: we are covered in God cloth. What tapestry can equal the human fabric? This actually is an image, a microscopic view of human skin cells. Very, very beautiful. Fluorescent. Our ability to create and harness technology comes from God. So what can we do with it? Give it right back to him as an act of worship, right? We should use it to glorify him and build his kingdom. And we are at a science and faith conference with intelligent design abounding. So I just wanted to throw in a few examples of technology at the molecular level, just to make the point. This is the kinesin molecular motor. Maybe you've seen it. It literally walks along components of the cell as it delivers other components. It's a pretty amazing piece of technology. And then we have the bacterial flagellar motor, which is what my boss Stephen Meyer calls high tech and low life. Okay, and it's all the components of an outboard motor, how you would propel anything through liquid. And it's all right there, made long before we came on the scene. My third discovery that I made along the way was a fella named Jacques Ellul. And let me tell you more about him. he has a concept called technique that we'll get to in a second. It helps us understand where we're at today. Ellul was a French sociologist, a theologian, and philosopher of technology. He was born in 1912, died in 1994, so his life spanned the 20th century, and he would have been privy to many of our technological advances along the way. He wrote over 50 books and over 1,000 articles, and his particular focus was exploring the consequences of modern technology to humanity and the Christian's role in a technological society. Now, that last part's really cool because he wasn't just, bemoaning what was happening with machines and then saying, well, let's just sit out and read our Bible. He was saying Christians have a central role in this, a central part to play in the technological society, and we'll get into that more. Still with me? Okay. Mr. Jacques Ellul. Okay, so technique. This is something he teaches in his books. Technique, it's the ensemble of practices by which one uses available resources to achieve values. Now, we kind of know what technique is, okay? And it's really nothing special, nothing controversial. It's a way of accomplishing a task, basically, okay? Whether that's making your bed, cooking a turkey, getting ready to go on vacation. We all have specific ways we go about these tasks, and that's technique, okay? So before the Industrial Revolution, technique was a straightforward part of life. It was localized and various. How somebody, did blacksmithing in the Netherlands was going to be different to how they did it in England. They had different techniques, rising up independently of one another. This was before social media and telephones and before a lot of travel between countries. So everybody's technique was growing up independently. It developed slowly at the human pace. And this is important to remember. We were in charge of technique, okay? We governed technique because it was our tools and our methods that brought about the things we did. So it was going at a human pace. It was concerned with beauty as well as function. It wasn't just about the efficiency, it was also what it looked like and how it was to hold it and handle it. But then the Industrial Revolution came along, and through that age, machines began to replace human muscle and to some extent human mind. That brings us all the way to today. Cities began to emerge around factories. Humans began to conform to machines. Technique entered every sphere of life at that point. Ellul puts it this way. He says, technique has become the new milieu. That's a favorite word for Frenchmen, milieu. Okay, it's a French word that just means your environment. Technique has become the new milieu in which man is required to exist, and it supplants the old milieu, which was nature. So, modern technique. We're fast forwarding to our own age now. Modern technique, these are the hallmarks of modern technique. It seeks out what is most rational, what is artificial. It renders traditional morality obsolete. There's really no room in morality for technique, because technique, you're looking for the best in one way to do something. And if morality teaches one thing, but you see a better way, you're going to go for the better way, okay? So it renders traditional morality obsolete and either stays amoral or it produces a new version of morality. It produces a universe of objects, machines, and material things. It aims exclusively at what is measurable, quantifiable, as opposed to qualitative, right? Not so concerned with qualitative as it is with numbers and hard data. It relieves old restraints. I'm sure all of us can think of all the ways our lives are better now that we have ultrasounds and, all sorts of techniques and machinery that help us in our life. However, it's important to remember that it does impose new restraints, and those we're grappling with today. It also diminishes human autonomy and spontaneity. Think about it. There's not a whole lot of room in technique for the spontaneous individual, okay? That can do something at a moment's notice. No, we need to be planned. We need to know what's coming. We need to be predictable, okay? and rational. So there's not a lot of room for human spontaneity and autonomy. In a technological society, technique then is the way that we lose our freedom. Ellul says, he puts it this way, at stake is our very life. Okay, and we're going to need all the energy, inventiveness, imagination, goodness, and strength we can muster to triumph in our predicament. So who controls technique in the digital age? Go ahead, throw it out there. Who controls technique? Are we, as individuals, still in charge of the technique we use in daily life, or is it something else, someone else? Say again? You think ourselves? Okay. Well, I would like to think, we would all like to think that we're in charge of this, but at the end of the day, not so much. Not so much. If you're really going to be honest, you know, we have these companies, okay, and together they're known as big tech, okay, big tech, and these are the companies that are coming alongside us. They're offering us great services, free, right, with a little asterisk on that, okay. They want us to be involved. They want to be involved with us, okay. They're very interested in us. But these are the companies that are governing modern technique. Big tech dictates the techniques. Now remember, techniques are the methods, okay. So the methods by which we access information, connect with other people, entertain ourselves, get news and current events, pretty much every facet of our lives, right? Shopping, medical, fitness, mental health, recreation, you name it, okay? It's all connected in some way to a big tech company. And these are not the only 5. There's more, but these are the main 5. So just a few examples of how big tech shapes our desires and values. If you've ever subscribed to Netflix, okay, especially in the past, I think they give you the option now, but you recall, okay, Netflix would move to the next episode without rolling those credits, okay? Let's just move to the good stuff, okay? And we get maybe 3 seconds to decide, well, it might be a bit too late, or I have homework, or I have a spouse I should pay attention to, or I got to sleep, okay? Netflix has admitted in their board member meetings that sleep is their number one enemy or target, you know. They want to reduce the sleep so they can have more eyeballs and attention. So one way they do that is they speed everything up. But no, those are our moments to decide, am I going to shut this off now or am I going to watch something else? And they take that away, okay? So whose decision is it really to move to the next episode or watch something else? Another small thing is the home button for the iPhone. And I'm in the Apple ecosystem, so I'm going to use Apple a little bit more as examples, but this goes for, you know, for Google as well and Android devices. But they took the home button away. Now you might think, well, it's perfectly reasonable. They can do what they want. It's their phone. Oh, I thought it was my phone. Well, it's their phone, you know, they do this. It's fine. They took it away. It's not a huge thing, but they make you interact with their device a little differently. They make you touch it a little more. It's almost like fondling it, you know, when you got your finger staying on it and you're moving here, there, and everywhere instead of just that button, you know. So it's a different tactile experience. And you know that the more we touch something, the more drawn we become to it, right? So it's a very tactile experience. And I actually heard rumors they're bringing it back because enough people complained. So, you know, sometimes they think, well, we got it wrong, let's put that back in. But generally, they're in charge of the technique, and you can like it or lump it. Another example, and this is something that's like literally so small, okay, it's an emoji, but it's monumental as well, okay? Apple loaded this on millions of phones just automatically as part of the latest update, okay? We're now walking around with a pregnant man emoji in our pockets, okay? Whether we want it, whether we'll ever need it or use it, okay? That's what's happening, okay? They have steered us towards that. And it's the first step to normalcy, okay? They're changing reality in the way they govern the technique. and our access to things. Now, you can think of a ton of other examples of this, okay? Fitness trackers, okay? It's no longer just a walk, you know, a pleasant walk in nature or around the block. No, we've got to have all the data. We've got to send charts to our physician and our friends. We've got to post to Facebook that we did 2 miles. You know, it's become this very formal thing. Used to be informal, okay? That's another hallmark of modern technique, is going from the informal to the formal, you know, and the quantifiable. Fast food, right? Not good to eat all the time, but sometimes occasionally you'll go in. And what do you see today? Do you have somebody welcoming you and talking to you about your order? Not really, right? We've got kiosks. I walked into Taco Bell the other week, and it's 3 kiosks, nobody up front, okay? They don't even care about the dining room anymore, because they've got drive-through and they've got mobile orders. I mean, that's kind of where it's at now, you know. We're just the odd one out that come in to eat and converse. But it's very strange, isn't it? It's very strange not to be greeted by a human being anymore. But here, use this. I had that same experience when I went to the movie theater. I got out of the elevator, was looking forward to speaking with a young person. I used to work at the movies, and it's a lot of fun. But what did this young person do? Didn't really respond too much to my, hi, how are you? You know, welcome back to the movies post-COVID. No, it was, here's the screen to order your ticket. And I said, really? And then they said, we'll send somebody over if you need help with it. So there's the helpfulness is, here, let me show you how to use this screen, interact with another screen and another big tech company to get your ticket. Gone are the days when you have a happy face and a cheerful spirit to greet you. And there's tons of other examples too. Digital coupons. We've all been directed to AI to, you know, try to solve problems with some of these bigger companies, right? And a lot of times it works. You know, I'm not saying that a lot of this is bad. It's just different and it changes us, okay? And we need to recognize those changes. But they come in small bite-sized portions. Every time you upgrade or update your phone, I should say, to the latest operating system, it's another example of technique. I took note of the latest iOS update, 16, and some of the words they used. All new, enhance, deeper intelligence, seamless, inspiration, expressive. It sounds really good. Let iOS surprise and delight you throughout the day. You know, we'll pick the photos that you should look at, you know. And again, that can be helpful because we take thousands of photos, but they're deciding how to present them, which memories you should relive on a given day, and not you. And now one lock screen is not enough. We have multiple lock screens. So it's always more and more choice, you know, more and more customization. And in the Mail app, they promise that intelligent search improves your results by correcting typos and using synonyms for your search terms. What does that mean? In this age where they're admittedly changing vocabulary, I don't know if you've seen some of that, but Google are changing certain words. Oh, did you actually mean this? This is more inclusive, you know. So they are taking steps to change our vocabulary, whether we want that or not. So who really is in charge? Again, big tech's technique is subtle. It's gentle. It's friendly. It's casual. This doesn't hurt. You know, this is not hurting us, okay? We want their service, so yeah, we'll do what it takes. And if we don't like their technique, what does the terms of service tell us to do? Shout it out. Yeah. They're very blunt, right? I copied this straight out of the iOS agreement. By using your iPhone, you're agreeing to be bound by the following terms. If you do not agree, do not use the device. Return it, okay? They're telling you to do that, okay? So it's a like it or lump it scenario. But who reads the TOS anyway, the terms of service? So I guess the guiding question would be, should we trust companies with different values than us to dictate the methods of our life? That's a question to think about here. So I'm encouraging people to be what I call a tech boss, okay? This is something that isn't going to take, 5 minutes, okay? This gradually happened over time, so it's going to be a gradual process for us, months, maybe even years, to master this. But master it we need to, because we are human, okay? We live and we die offline. I like to tell people, you're going to die offline. You're not going to die in the metaverse. I mean, you could, but for real, you're going to die in the offline. So live offline, So anyway, that's a little bit to renew your understanding. Then we get to hitting that reset button. There's a word I like to use called scrutinize. It comes from the Latin scrutare, okay? And it means to examine or investigate or search, okay? Now, what are we examining in our life? Well, all the gadgets, all the subscriptions, the platforms, the game systems, the services, the companies, okay? You really have to take a good look at where you're at in your relationship with big tech, okay? A hard, good look, and that takes a little time. Another question, does this technology positively or negatively affect my energy, my relationships, my attitude, my time, my wallet, my memory, okay? You get that sort of question mode, okay? You've got to ask yourself some questions about all this, and it takes time. Here's another one. Can I make or weave something useful for myself and or others with this tech tool? What can I do that's useful with this, Tech has become an end in itself, okay? It used to be a means to an end, but in a lot of ways, it is the end, okay? You pull it out and it's the end. You're not doing anything with it. You're just kind of enjoying it, okay? Maybe a little too much. Does this tech tool help me accomplish my kingdom business? And remember, it's the good works that God has set out for us to do, Ephesians 2:10. And another guiding verse to help with that, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And your neighbor, okay? Are you loving your neighbor enough? Are you loving God enough? Or is big tech getting in the way? So after you have scrutinized and after you've asked questions and given it some thought, the next step would be to purge, okay? And I like this visualization because we kind of do have to put these things to death, okay, in our lives. And I know that might be a little extreme, but it's a good way to see it, Sell it, give it away, cancel it, kill it. Okay, whatever you have to do to regain authority in your life and be able to focus on the good works that God has for you, okay? And your tech companies might be different than your neighbors, okay? And that's fine. There's no one way to do this, okay? There's no one solution to this, okay? But that's the idea. So what is a tech boss? It's a person who uses technology as a means to do the will of God in his or her life. That's how I would define it. Along with one who has affirmed his or her freedom in a technological society. So, a few tips on how to be a tech boss. First, reclaim the first and last hours of your day. Okay? Those are your hours. It's the beginning of a new day. It's the end of a day. Okay? Reflect. Look ahead. Give yourself time to think. Commune with your Creator. Be with your family. Don't just jump to this thing. Okay? And I know, we're waking up with it. It's the last thing we touch before on our way to bed. But you've got to introduce some separation between you and your smart devices. So that's one way to do it. Reclaim the first and last hours. Practice that separation. Now, you don't have to do this all the time, but once a week, leave your phone at home. Just once a week, okay? Get used to the feeling of not having it with you, okay? That's key. And if you're at home, put it in an unplugged box. It's just a box that you can make. They have a lot of them out there, or you can make your own. Just put it in its place, even when you're at home. Put that in the next room and separate yourself physically from it. Okay, that's going to go a long way to you getting some of that mental clarity and that spiritual concentration. Another thing I would challenge is thinking without distraction for 20 minutes a day. Okay, now a study came out, and I'll actually mention it in a few, but a study came out on thinking about thinking, and it found that we are not really doing it because we think it's going to be boring, okay? And I'll talk about that again in a moment, but thinking without distraction, okay? And you can do it 2 minutes at the gas pump, 5 minutes in the bathroom, 10 minutes walk, okay? It doesn't matter where, just practice thinking for yourself. Believe it or not, that's rather uncommon today. Consider low or no-cost screen solutions to problems. Do you really need to use Google to solve this problem? Okay. Or can you just use your own brain or something else? Okay. Just practice asking yourself, do I really need a screen? invest in some retro tech. I threw this in here because, well, it's good for a number of reasons. Number one, old technology makes you appreciate where you are today, okay? Wow, they had to do all that just to get this, you know? And it also, you know, prevents you from going whole hog with smart homes, okay? They want us to have a smart home. They want us to be surrounded with these gadgets that talk to each other, that talk to servers, and that make all our decisions for us. But I'm here to tell you that a smart home isn't really smart in the end, okay? We want our homes to be a sanctuary, not a smart home. Another thing you could do is make Sundays screen-free, or any day. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday, but a lot of people do it on Sunday, okay? We need a Sabbath. We need a time when we're not around our screens, okay? So make one of these days screen-free. You can decide for yourself if you want to keep your smartphone, okay? Some people will ultimately decide, no, I'm not going to use it. Or you can jump to something that's called a wise phone. There's a few examples out there, something called a light phone. And they basically, you know, pare it down to where it's just calling, texting, maybe GPS, okay? The things that you would typically use without it overcoming you. Or a flip phone, or not having a cell phone. There we go, okay? Strange. I've never encountered this sort of thing before. Another thing you can consider is something called nudges. Nudges are small changes to settings or to your environment to reduce your use. Some examples would be, I bet you didn't know this, you can turn your phone to grayscale. Okay? Grayscale, and I'll show you how to do it. It's in the accessibility settings, okay? And it's amazing. It drains all of the color and life out of your phone. Everything's still there. You take pictures, it's still color, but you're not seeing it in color. And they've found that actually does reduce your desire to want to be on it when you don't see everything in glorious color. You can disable notifications. You can get into the accessibility features and take away that Face ID, okay? Because that makes it too easy to jump on, okay? Make a passcode again. You can hide or delete apps that you know are problematic for you. You can reduce reply expectations, which just means, hey, just know that you're not going to hear from me right away, okay? And be okay with that, you know. Find nice ways to tell people that, you know. Because it's like 5 minutes after a text and they're like, where is this person, you know? What are they doing? They're not responding, you know. They're busy living, right? Don't give teens under 18 a smartphone. Okay, now I felt this for quite a few years, but there's a trend emerging that's agreeing with me, and there's a lot of science out there that's coming to this conclusion. And this will lead me into a few minutes on social media, because I know that's a lot what you came for, okay? Very quickly, social, right? If you go back to the history of it, it means companion, right? You're being a friend, okay? And it also actually means companionable, okay? But how many true friends are we actually finding on social media? And are we still being companionable to one another? Okay, there's obvious answers to those. Okay, we do have a problem. These I just made to kind of highlight the idea, you know. The original status update was sending a letter, right? If you couldn't be around a person, okay? We've kind of gotten away from that. The original friend request, right? Shaking hands, being in person, you know, making friends the old-fashioned way, okay? The original like, right? You get a thumbs up from someone, you know you're onto something, okay? But that electronic like, I don't know, we just go crazy for, you know, how many likes can we get? How many loves? How many follows, you know? So social media today is prevalent, right? 72% of Americans use some type of social media, usually daily. It's caustic. Okay, a recent poll found that 76% of U.S. adults believe Facebook makes society worse. It's unhealthy. Adolescents and young adults are in the midst of a mental health crisis. It can be dangerous. Excessive social media use is linked to depression and greater suicide risk amongst girls, teen girls, and other populations. And it can be distracting. TikTok would be a big example. The most engaged platform. 52 minutes daily average use for the average user, 26 hours a month, okay? And that's just one social media platform. A 2012 study at the University of Maryland looked at the effects of mobile phone use on pro-social behavior. Okay, and what they found was interesting. Mobile phone use evokes feelings of social connectedness. We get the illusion that we're connecting, okay? And then so we actually desire it less in real life, okay? This decreases the need for further affiliation and lowers concern for other people. They did this through a study, you know, and the way they tested it was, do you want to volunteer in this organization? That was the question that they put to people. And more people did not want to volunteer and help out after they had been using social media than those who hadn't. So it actually makes you antisocial and selfish if you use it a lot. It takes the place of the real thing. Okay, quick example. TikTok, most of you know this stuff, but 1.2 billion global monthly active users. It's the most downloaded app in the world. 167 million TikTok videos are watched in an internet minute. So every internet minute. And I've already talked about the average use, okay? Kids especially, because I do this a lot at youth groups, and I want to show kids how close in time is their social media use to their school time. And of course, I threw in the youth group in the bathroom there just for context. You know, with TikTok, it's eroding your attention span. These videos are only supposed to be, 15, 30, maybe 60 seconds, okay? Think about what that does repetitively as you look for a punchline within that time frame. Okay, you're not going to want to pick up a book. You're not going to want to listen to a full lecture. What, 45 minutes? You know, it's taking away our ability to enjoy longer things. It pushes the envelope, which is why I have the fighter jet up there. That's an aeronautical term, which means exceeding safe limits. It decides for you what you're going to watch. All you have to do is watch one video, and the algorithm will do the rest, okay, the TikTok algorithm. It builds a profile based on your curiosity, based on the mood that you had at that given session, based on your whims, your temptations, your ignorance, okay? All that builds a profile of the videos you get served up on TikTok. It connects you also to total strangers. Have you noticed that? We're really comfortable being around people we don't know, as long as it's virtual, right? All that awkwardness is gone, and we can interact with them virtually. And there's not much foresight either, or forethought. Which brings me to social media, which I'll talk about for a few minutes to wrap things up. 13. Anybody know why that would be an important number with regard to social media? Greg? Exactly, yeah. It was arbitrarily chosen as part of the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act of the year 2000. Okay? 2000. That was 4 years before Facebook, 11 years before Snapchat, 16 years before TikTok. Okay? The Massachusetts senator that was behind the bill, Ed Markey, he actually wanted the age to be 16, but he was thwarted by tech companies and civil liberties groups. Okay? He wanted it to be higher, but it stayed at 13. Now, last month, the Surgeon General of the United States comes out and says this: 13 is too early. It's a time where it's really important for us to be thoughtful about what's going into how they think about their self-worth and their relationships. And the skewed and often distorted environment of social media often does a disservice to many of these kids. Okay, this was just last month, okay? A leader in the United States finally saying, no, you know what, 13 is not good, okay? He recommends 16, 17, or 18, okay? And this is actually part of a trend. You might have noticed it, okay? Adolescents are uniquely vulnerable to habitual checking behaviors, okay? 78% of 13 to 17-year-olds report checking at least hourly. 46% report checking almost constantly. Now, a study just came out last month. This is a really good one to remember, and I have a copy of it if anybody wants to see it. It's a new 3-year longitudinal study that found that habitual social media checking behaviors physically alter adolescent brains over time. What they did was they took a public school district, I think North Carolina, hundreds of kids, 12 to 15, okay, and they measured them with MRI scans throughout this 3 years. And they found the kids that use it a lot, or habitual checking, okay, they found that normal natural peak when adolescents are very, sensitive to peer pressure and to social feedback, they found that that normally will go down after peak adolescence, okay? It will come down. But with habitual checking behavior, it actually continues the trajectory. And it will ultimately change the physical makeup of your brain. Kids become hardwired to seek out peer approval, which, as you know, can bring about all kinds of problems, anxiety, depression, right? Suicidal tendencies. They're more susceptible to insecurity and more accessible to bullying when they care too much about feedback from social peers. And as adults, it can cause, hypersensitivity to criticism. One bad word said could just crush them because they don't have the resilience that a normal behavior would bring about. So 18 is the number that many people are calling for now. We had a recent National Review cover story, Keep Them Offline, the case for banning social media for kids under 18. Okay, and there's other stories out there. Bills are starting to be proposed along those lines. And I'll be the first to tell you that, this is not the government's job, right? What is the first line of defense? Parents, right? But it's helpful to have a second line of defense, as a fail-safe or as another option to help us. In that National Review article, they said age restriction laws governing driving, voting, enlisting in the military, smoking, drinking alcohol, all that has an age limit. So why would we treat social media any differently? It's just as addicting, just as potentially dangerous, right? Can have benefits, right? But it also has pitfalls. The best we could do, they said, at the dawn of the social media age 20 years ago is no longer good enough. Okay, and they compare it to the automobile, right? Great benefits, but also serious potential risks. Let's give our kids a chance, right? Okay, so a few guidelines on social media that I would recommend. Decide which platforms you're going to keep and which ones you'll ditch. You can't keep them all, okay? Set a time of day and a time allowance for social media. The general recommendation I've seen is 30 minutes a day, okay? Don't do it for more than 30 minutes a day or less. Unless it's your job, like marketing, okay? Then you're using it as a tool. Then you can put in some more time into it, obviously. A few questions you can ask before you post things, okay? Why am I posting this? Why do my social media contacts deserve to see this? Can I share this information a different way? What does sharing this content say about me? How could the company use this to make a profit? Should this stay private? Should this be shared only in my inner circle? How would I feel if this content were hacked? Okay, so there's some good questions you can ask yourself, train yourself to think about before you do it, okay? If you're unsure about any of those answers, pray on it, sleep on it, okay? You don't have to share. We feel that sharing imperative, but you don't have to, okay? There are other ways to live out your life with others. Okay, so just a few more minutes here as we go into releasing your potential as a human being. Remember, I know it's obvious, but there's only one you, okay? Your ideas, okay, your skill set, your gifts, all unique to you. So if you're being distracted, you can't bring us those. You can't share those with the world. There's also only one life to live, okay? Every minute you spend virtually is a minute less to spend in real life. And that would be my recommendation with the metaverse, right? Hop into the metaverse. It's all around you. It's awesome, but you only have one life to live. I would say this, think of it in terms of circles. Okay, this is important, so I'll put it back on the screen. Think of this in terms of circles, okay? You have your inner circle, which would be the first two rings here, okay? Who's in your inner circle? Your family, your close friends, your close relatives, youth leaders, teachers, neighbors, okay? You get the idea? Those are the people you got to spend time with. Those are the people you got to live life with, okay? But we're kind of doing it the opposite now, especially youth, They're going to jump into their outer circle to share life with. And who's in our outer circle? Acquaintances, new friends, online influencers, strangers, semi-strangers, okay? All of those folks, it's great. They're nice to be out there, but those are not the people we need to focus on in our life, okay? We need to focus on our inner circle, okay? Now, where do we turn? Where do today's youth turn when they're lonely, anxious, bored, scared, discontent, sad? Where are they turning? Are they turning to someone in their inner circle, someone they can be face to face with, someone who's going to truly love them, right? Or are they turning to these influencers, right, on TikTok? Are they turning to people they barely know or don't know at all? So it's good to think in terms of your inner and your outer circle, okay? Spend more time living in your inner circle. Okay, a few examples. I won't go into them, but there they are. The Bible has a lot to say about living life with other human beings, okay? Fellowshipping, gathering, bearing with one another, showing hospitality, you name it. The Bible wants us to be with other human beings, okay? And we can only do so much of that virtually. Humans also need nature. My friend John Muir, okay? What did he do? He left a possible career in technology. Get this. I've been studying this. It's really cool. He was an avid inventor, right? A machinist. And they wanted him in charge of the shop that he was working at. He created all kinds of cool stuff. Even a bed that was connected to a clock that would wake him up by slowly tilting him into a pail of cold water at the bottom. That was his alarm clock, right? And he made this. Now, a lot of people know about this part of John Muir's life, the famous naturalist, conservationist, father of America's national parks. But God got a hold of him, right, through an eye injury. A file flew up from a wheel he was working on, went into his right eye, and he was out in a dark room for 2 months or more, okay? And he did not actually know he would see, God's beauty again. And when he got out and his eyes healed, this is what he said. As soon as I got out into heaven's light, I started on another long excursion, making haste with all my heart to store my mind with the Lord's beauty. I bade adieu to all my mechanical inventions, determined to devote the rest of my life to the study of the inventions of God. I like that. We got to spend more time in nature. That's what God made this for, whether you're looking into the stars or going into the woods. That was John Muir in 1867 after his accident. And humans need purpose, right? We are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession. And he has things for us to do. Are we doing them? Okay. And are we using technology as a tool to get them done? Remember Ephesians 2:10, right? The good works. Okay. Now I'm wrapping up with this. Jacques Ellul. Okay. Now I didn't know this stuff before I set up what I've shared with you, but he really goes along the same lines. Okay. These are Ellul's necessary conditions. How do we manage life in a technological society? This is what he said. First, we got to understand the problem and what's at stake. Then we have to desacralize the lure of modern tech. Okay, people attribute sacred value to what possesses transcendent power. These things have transcendent power. They're almost magical. Okay, we attribute a lot of value to that. We got to desacralize that. We got to take the sacred out of that. Okay, and make it a common object again that we can use, yes, but that cannot use us. Then he says to teach detachment and independence. That's what I'm encouraging you to do as a tech boss. Then he says to engage, to think, right? Have the necessary reflection to get through modern life. Don't just flip on another screen. Sit there and think for 20 minutes. It's really actually very nice to just sit there and think, right? Oh, there we're out again. Okay, one more slide I got for you, and that'll be it. If it cooperates. We've been kicked out. This is so weird. Okay. All right. So that is how Ellul said, look, this is how we're going to get our freedom in the technological age. Okay. He says we got to set up a confrontation between technique's pretensions to resolve all human problems and the human will to escape technical determinism. There's a clash there, right? There's a tension there. Big tech want us to do one thing. We've got to push back and say, this is my life, my good works that God has pre-planned, and I only have a limited time to do it, okay? So he actually said our duty as a Christian was to stand uniquely at the intersection of this material world and the eternal world to come and testify to the reality of both. Christians can be right in the middle of this argument, helping yourself first, affirm your freedom, but then helping others affirm their freedom as well, so that we can all, live in the will of God and do the works that he has for us. Thank you all for coming.